but talking, of course, about Kevin Durant and Donovan Mitchell. And both are very much on the market. Both of their current franchises demanding quite the haul for each of them. And who knows? Maybe they'll wind up in the same mega trade at some point down the line, like our Bobby Marks and Brian Windhorst hypothesized on this show. But we can't predict the future and not give you a little bit of the tale of the tape. So here it is. Let's take a look at these two players and where they stand. Their contracts, they run through 25-26. KD's owed over $192 million in that span. Donovan Mitchell, he's going to make around $135 million, and Durant is 8 years older than Mitchell. So joined now by Nick Friedel and Monica McNutt. And starting with you, Monica, which of these two is more likely to start the season on their current team and why?
Dude, I think it's KD. Listen, here's the thing. Danny Ainge has gone sort of scorched earth in his commentary. We had this conversation last night over our Summer League broadcast with Sean Kelly and George Sedano, and we all kind of agree that Ainge sort of being so blunt about what he defines as a successful season is curious. And so I think there's a little bit more angst there that might want Ainge to make this happen, as opposed to me believing that the Nets might still want to smooth things over and keep working with KD.
It's Kevin. The Nets are holding on to that hope that it's still possible that after a couple more months of no movement potentially that he could come back. But, man, if you're Danny Ainge and you're looking at all the picks that have come your way for Rudy Gobert and all the picks potentially that could come your way for Donovan Mitchell, you're going to make that move if you're ready to hit the rebuild button, which it appears that they are in Utah. Brooklyn is still holding out to the hope, and that's all it is right now. But they have the hope that if they can't find the right move for Kevin, they go back to him and say, hey, we tried and we'll continue to try, but we want you to come back and start the year and see what happens. So absolutely, in my mind, I think Donovan Mitchell of these two guys would be the first to go.
I've heard this from Nick, but Monica, I haven't actually heard this from you yet. Is there somewhere you want to see Donovan Mitchell play?
I do know that the Knicks fan base is sort of clamoring, and there are relationships there. But I don't think that you can sleep on him as a fit in the Miami Heat organization as well. I mean, listen, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, you add Donovan in that mix. I don't know exactly what it would cost and if the Heat have enough to make Danny Ainge happy. But I think if you can add him there, that only propels the Heat, who managed to be contenders, whether we see that during the regular season or not, regardless.
We'd see you in that hat you had a little bit more if he went down there.
We would love to see that hat. Get all the size 8s that can possibly fit into my bag. But in order to make that happen, they've got to find more picks. And if the Heat really want to pull off at least this move for Donovan Mitchell, they've got to find a way to get more draft capital than they have in the moment.
Interesting. Well, we are not done talking about very clear on what this means as we welcome in our senior NBA insider, Adrian Wojnarowski, fresh off of a red-eye. Woj, welcome home. The last time we spoke, 24 hours ago, you broke the news that Indiana signed DeAndre Ayton to the largest offer sheet of all time, and now here we are. Phoenix matched it. Why would they match it as opposed to just signing him to a max contract?
Malika, ultimately, they didn't value DeAndre Ayton at a max contract, max money. And so they, I think, had doubts that anybody else in the league who could create cap space would also value him at a max. They challenged his agents, Bill Duffy, Nima Namakian, to go out and get an offer sheet. This is restricted free agency. This is what it's about. You don't lose the player. You get a chance to match the offer sheet. That's what they did. 4 years, $133 million. But this process does create acrimony, and certainly it was felt in Phoenix, I think especially at the end of last season by DeAndre Ayton. And now when you match the offer sheet, you get DeAndre Ayton back. Now there's some mending that has to go on, and I think especially Monty Williams, Chris Paul, the leadership of that Suns team. Listen, they're uniquely able to go and do that. Monty Williams has had a very strong relationship overall with DeAndre Ayton, but it gets tested in this process. But he's got the contract now. He's got max money, just like those in his draft class who came behind him, Luka Doncic, Trae Young among them. And I think once DeAndre Ayton gets back to Phoenix, gets back to work, certainly he understands this is a team that, again, this year has a chance to compete for a championship, and they'll figure this out he'll fit back in and they'll go back to work.
This sort of segues nicely into my next question, and the question may be simpler than the answer. What happens now for both Phoenix and Indiana?
Well, Indiana, listen, this was just, they took a swing. They had a lot of cap space. They're in a rebuild. It wasn't as though giving the offer sheet to Ayton precluded them from something else. It got matched within minutes. It used to be sometimes that cap, it would go on for days. It used to have a longer period that a team had to match or had time to match. And so for Indiana, listen, they're a team, Tyrese Halliburton, this young group that Rick Carlisle is going to coach in Indiana. They're rebooting this roster. DeAndre Ayton fit with their timeline. He's still 23 years old, soon to be 24. They had nothing to lose in this. They move on. Brooklyn did that early in their rebuild with cap space. Took some shots at some offer sheets. They got matched. They moved on. But again, Phoenix, listen, that's what this process is, restricted free agency, and they matched it. Perhaps it's more than they wanted to spend for DeAndre Ayton, but you cannot let an asset of his caliber, he's irreplaceable for them. You don't let a player like that walk out the door for nothing. And they did.
Well, you mentioned the magic word, or should I say the magic team, Brooklyn. The question on everyone's mind is, what does this mean for the Suns' pursuit of Kevin Durant, or should I say Kevin Durant's interest in the Suns?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly mutual. But I think for Phoenix, it becomes harder. I think having DeAndre Ayton where they did, where they could have perhaps included him in a sign-and trade as part of a bigger deal for Kevin Durant, certainly gave them more ammo to go after him. Brooklyn didn't necessarily have interest in DeAndre Ayton, but there could have been a third or a fourth team in the process that could have moved the pieces around, and Ayton could have helped Brooklyn get something they wanted as part of a bigger Kevin Durant deal. That can't happen now. He can't be traded until January 15th. He can't be traded without his consent for a full year. Devin Booker can't be traded for a full year, although the Suns are not trading Devin Booker in a deal for Kevin Durant or anybody else. Does it make it impossible? No, they still have a lot of picks. They have Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson. There are assets there. Whether that's enough to go out for what Brooklyn does want for Kevin Durant, and to think that there's not somebody out there who could top it, it just is a much harder road for the Suns to get KD, certainly in the short term.
Absolutely. One more while I still have you. You reported on Tuesday that the Jazz, they're showing a willingness to listen to offers on Donovan Mitchell. So where do we stand right now on the Mitchell front? Yeah, Utah's talking throughout the league. They checked in with New York right around the time that we reported that the other day, traded some ideas with the Knicks about what the Knicks might be willing to do, what the Jazz would want. And it was really just more of a conversation to kick off what will be, I think, an extended process over time. And listen, New York is certainly very interested in Donovan Mitchell. He is from New York. They have wanted to use their picks, their assets, their young players to go out and try to get an all-star level player. Donovan Mitchell certainly fits that. But I think for Utah, they have time on their sides here with a long-term contract with Mitchell. They have a sense of what a structure might look like. I think a number of different structures could look like with the Knicks. They'll go out, they'll talk, they'll continue to talk to those around the league. I would expect New York and Utah to revisit it, perhaps revisit that conversation in the coming weeks. But this is not a process that's a negotiation back and forth or an everyday thing. It's not that. There's certainly a lot of interest in Mitchell around the league. And, one thing about, especially with Danny Ainge at the top in Utah, he does deals historically when he feels like he's got a decided advantage in the return. They got that with Rudy Gobert. We could point to a few deals in Boston that they got tremendous returns for assets. And I think it's going to be the same thing with Donovan Mitchell. But
New York is a motivated suitor.
Interesting. But at this point, there is no rush. Adrian Wojnarowski, thank you so much for joining us here on NBA Today. Woj just gave us so much to process because this feels like the offseason that just keeps going. There are more and more dominoes to fall. And speaking of dominoes, for a little bit more on everything Woj just outlined, it's my friend Monica McNutt. Oh, my gosh. What is that noise? Oh, yeah, it's because you're live from Sin City. And, Monica, I see you. You got the Strip going on behind you, Caesar's Palace over there. So we're going to make this segment a little bit Vegas-themed. Are you ready to test your luck, my friend?
All right, let's do it.
All right, we're going to do it. And we're going to spin the wheel on what team will Donovan Mitchell be on next season. What do you think?
Oh, man. Listen, I like the way Woj phrased it. New York is a motivated suitor. And listen, Danny Ainge has a track record of stocking the cupboard when he does these deals. The Knicks do have, I believe, 11 picks over the next 7 years. And so that, to me, seems to be the place that would be the leader in the clubhouse, so to speak. Obviously, Donovan's relationships with Leon Rose and some folks already in the front office. He's really close with Emmanuel Quickly, although I don't know that that would be his teammate if this deal manages to get done. But I'm leaning toward the Knicks on this one, Malika.
Interesting. All right, how's your poker face, Monica? I don't have a good one.
Girl, I have a terrible poker face.
I was like, you laugh too much to have a good poker face. I don't have a good poker face either. Well, we're going to test it anyway. If you're the Nets, a little game of poker here. Are you waiting out Durant or are you holding on to him next season? A little call bluff action.
Okay, so I kind of think that KD ends up working this out. I don't know if I'm in the minority on this one, but I think I know that the initial thought is to move KD and then deal with Kyrie, but I kind of feel like if you could do a deal for Kyrie and convince KD that now things are going to be a little bit more streamlined and we will be able to focus on the goal of winning here in the Nets organization. I mean, remember, before Kyrie got the green light to play part-time, KD was rolling. They had a good thing going with the Brooklyn Nets there. So part of me thinks that this one, the Nets will just need to kind of wait him out and see if they can figure a way to make amends, we'll call it.
Okay. All right. I like that. All right. A little game of blackjack is where we're going next. Now that you have matched the offer under 8, and if you're the Phoenix Suns, are you standing pat or are you trying to improve and potentially figure something out? We know we can't get traded until mid-January, but figure something out on the Kevin Durant front.
You're still after KD. Come on, Malika. What do I say in blackjack? Hit me or I'm playing? I don't know. I'm terrible at blackjack, too. I can't count.
Hit me.
Anyway, you're still going after Kevin Durant. I get it. DeAndre Ayton, to me, I think he deserves this amount of money. I think he's a guy that's going to have a great career in the league, but he's not KD. And if you have an opportunity to go and get KD, even if it is January 16th or whatever the case may be, then that's what you do if you're the Phoenix Suns. And so I don't think that that's disrespectful. I think that's the nature of